All right. I'm going to take you guys to the shore of the beautiful Lake Erie, and I'm going big time. The Browns have not been in first place in the AFC North for almost 20 years, and this is the Sunday they do it. Joe Burrows beats the Ravens on Thursday night, and the Browns take over first by throttling, yes, you heard me, throttling the Steelers. They'll beat them by at least 17 points, and they're taking over first AFC North.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Guys on Sports. We are digital once again on Zoom for you guys today. We're going to recap week 10. We're going to let you know about some waiver wire pickups. We're going to let you know what we learned from the week. We're also going to give you some bold predictions at the end of the show. How was the week for everybody?
Man, I tell you what, I'm having a good week and then a bad week. Good week and then a bad week. So last week was my bad week. Just couldn't get any kind of momentum, had a lot of buys. They greatly impacted my teams. So not very good.
I think we call that inconsistency, Rocky. I went about the same as I've been going the last 3 weeks. It's kind of split right down the middle. In your league, I'm like on a 3-game losing streak. Probably needed to win this week. Wound up having Swift and Cup both on a bye. So things just didn't, and then Saquon Barkley, which we know exactly what happened there. So not looking great there. But in the league we're all in together, just tied it up with old D-Bone over there. Now also 8-2, so feeling good.
I needed to win in that league, and I thought I was going to win, to be honest. And I got surprised by Michael.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I needed to win to keep pace with you guys. And I think I'm the team this week with A.J. Brown starting. Nobody wants to play me. I get it. There's respect.
Well, listen, before we go back to Zach, I'll say I put up pretty sizable number this week, and I had Tyreek Hill, Cup, and Swift on bye in that week in that league as well. So, I mean, we're only going up from here. And I've been it's crazy. We're going to talk about this later in the episode. I've been benching Sam Howell all year. He's currently QB4. It's time to fire him up and get him in there over Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, well, I went 0-4, including my basketball league. Got upset by a 2-win team. Now I'm 8-2 with Phil. Put up 120 without Jalen Hurts. So,
who beat you?
Angel.
I think we should. Yeah, no, I think you should call out Angel and say, "Good, well done, Angel."
Well done. Hey, Angel, we appreciate you.
Yeah.
But hey, trade me that player I want, Angel. Enough shit around. Come on. You see, I'm going against these two. I need the players, man.
All right. Do we have TikTok takes this week? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So before we get into TikTok take, the recap of our predictions last week, Phil hit on his bold prediction. The fantasy points were there. 1 touchdown away, but Mike Evans had a touchdown and 140 plus receiving, so good on you. And then Rocky went 2 for 2 waiver wire picks. Both his waiver wire picks had double digits. Noah Brown having 20 plus, which is incredible. So without further ado, we can get into.
Wait, hold on. No, I got to toot my own horn. 2 things. I just want to highlight how great of a advice it was to go pick up Trey McBride. Okay?
Yeah.
He might be that kind of guy, especially with Kyler Murray back, that could just catapult the team to like really being a contender. At that spot, as a tight end, to get that kind of production, if this could be I mean, I don't expect what he did this week to happen again, but I mean, if he could give you something close to that going into the playoffs, that's pretty great.
Yeah, we've had a few. I mean, Devin Singletary, for mentioned in players, he had 23 fantasy points last week, and Damian Pierce being an afterthought. Said that a few weeks ago. So yeah, stay tuned for our waiver wires near the end of the show. We've been giving you guys bangers. Before we get into TikTok Take, a quick little plug from Thrive Fantasy. If you do daily fantasy, try out Thrive Fantasy. Click the link in the bio, scan the QR code on screen. New users get $250 matched, up to $250 matched on the first deposit. You get a lot of cool things like free promos, which are going to be on screen for you now. I mean, you've got NBA like SGA, LeBron James are on there. You've got NFL like Russell Wilson. Pat Mahomes, I think, is this week. And then every user, if you're not even a new user, gets to take advantage of the Wednesday promo that they have where they're boosting their parlays, 3-player parlays and 4-player parlays, that those odds are getting boosted. So you make more money on those. And it helps out the show. So yeah, if you like doing daily fantasy, please do it through Thrive Fantasy. And now into TikTok Take.
Time to check my social media, yeah. To see who loves me online.
The first comment is from YouTube. Antoine Jones 8254. This was an old clip, actually, so this must hit their algorithm recently because it was a few days ago that they commented. This was about Rachaad White. I think Phil was saying Rachaad White was a good grab. Rocky offered a little bit of pushback. Rachaad White, top 8 fantasy player right now for running backs in a lot of scoring formats. Antoine Jones 8254 said, "I love this take," with a lot of exclamation points. Just imagine if he had an offensive line.
I mean, I'm just a seer. I'm a seer of things.
No, the problem is, if you want to talk about he's a top 8 wide receiver, great. Yes. He is not a good running back. He sucks. He does not get between, and it's not the line. He's a great because he gets a lot of passes thrown his way. I know he's moving the needle, but good running back, Nick Chubb. Good running back, Swift.
Nick Chubb is injured right now.
Receiver.
Nick Chubb is sidelined. Nick Chubb is not. What's Nick Chubb ranked in fantasy right now, Rocky?
That's evil. You're wishing evil. You know what? Karma. Swift's going out this week. Who's your quarterback? Howell out this week.
You brought up Nick Chubb, not me.
And you brought up his injury, you son of a gun.
Well, I mean, it's pertinent to the subject. Rachaad White, if you picked him up, if you listen, whether you agreed or not, you got yourself a top 10 back right now. That's the facts.
More facts. We posted a clip about Tommy DeVito and Ben DiNucci with a potential. This isn't necessarily a comment, but I wanted to shout out Lexi DeVito, who I'm going to assume is related to Tommy DeVito.
Yeah, let me cut. No, shut up. Okay? Hey, Lexi, don't listen to this guy. Shout outs from me, the Giants fan from New Jersey. I know the guys over there. I don't know if you're Central, South, North, wherever. You know, this guy's an Eagles fan. So give him thanks. Yeah, let's get that out there.
And secondly, 100% Italian here. He doesn't even get the reference when we say casino. He hasn't even seen the movie.
Yeah.
Why am I getting shot at right now?
Lexi, talk to us at the top of the screen here, baby.
Okay. Go ahead now. Proceed.
Yeah, well, Rocky, you're on the bottom of the screen for me, so I hope that
you're on the bottom for the screen for me as well.
I'm always on top, baby.
Well, except for on both our screens. Yeah, Lexi DeVito, thanks for liking the post. Thanks for following the podcast. That's awesome.
Come on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lexi. Love you, baby.
Come on the show. Talk to us about your son. Tell us how you raised them. I want to hear more about
Don Bosco Prep.
I want to hear more about these chicken cutlets. I'm interested. Come on.
All right, so that was TikTok Take. Thank you for supporting us on our social media. And we can now get into what did we learn? Alrighty.
Yeah.
Rocky, since you're on the bottom of our screen, what did you learn this week?
Yeah, what did you learn?
Yeah, so Phil helped me with this one a little bit, although he got it wrong at first, but he corrected himself. The AFC North is top to bottom, the best division in football. We talked about it prior to this season, but it's really playing out. I mean, you can't count the Steelers out. I don't know how they're winning.
They're in second place.
Yeah, they're in second place because they beat the Browns head to head. They have not outgained or had more time of possession in any game this season, and yet they're still 6-3 and in second place. So this week for them, for that entire division, we get to find out who's real and who's not. You got the Bengals versus the Ravens head to head on Thursday night. And so on Sunday afternoon, the Browns and Steelers could be playing for first place. I think the Browns are taking care of business this week, but you know,
Fair.
that's
yeah.
No,
Phil, what did you
I agree. I was trying to mess it up, but I think with Deshaun Watson starting to look more like himself, and the Ravens' dominance mixed in with their uneven play, I don't know. They feel like a team that's kind of playing down and playing up to their competition, which is kind of what they've been for a while, right? I still feel like at the end of the day, going into the playoffs, I don't think you want to play any team from that division because they're all going to kind of be battle tested from playing each other, but they all kind of have those like old school beat the team up mentality. Even Cincinnati with Burrow and everything, and they, we should probably talk about them a little bit. But I mean, it's just one of those things where it reminds me of like the NFC East when the teams are good, they beat each other up, and they're kind of battle tested playing each other throughout the year. I think they're going to be, there's a chance, slight chance, that you get all three of those teams taking the wild card this year.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned it with the Bengals. I think the time has passed to buy low on Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon, but if you have them on your squad, I think there's only smooth sailing. They're probably hold candidates for me because I think Joe Burrow will finish at least top 10. I don't even think that's saying much as far as fantasy goes. And Joe Mixon now has 3 touchdowns in 3 games, so that's a positive trend. I guess Deshaun Watson is back to fantasy relevant. I dropped him a few weeks ago.
Yeah, you did.
Keep an eye on him. And I'm still waiting for a Zay Flowers breakout game. I think it's going to happen, but I hope it's next week because I kind of need it.
I think what we witnessed, first of all, Joe Burrows, I love how intense he is. I don't know if you guys saw the interview after the game where he was like almost breaking down for losing the game.
See it.
I mean, it's honestly, the guy he wants to win. And it was almost to the point of tears because they lost against the Texans, which is a team I think that you expect that they would win. And I think Watson, for as much as I've been unsure of him, he had his half, 14 of 14, over 100 and something yards and a touchdown, ran in a 2-point conversion. He had his moment. And so I think a lot of it, being a quarterback is mental. And I just wonder if this isn't the click that he needed to believe he still belongs. So it's going to be an interesting end of the season here.
Did you make that? Was that your bold take? Something about Deshaun?
It was. I was wrong. Yeah,
you were wrong, but you were right.
Yeah, I called for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. I went real bold. And he did have 2 touchdowns, a 2-point conversion. And then in the second half, he was perfect.
Yeah, I feel like you were right. The spirit of what you were saying was right. He did kind of
take that.
It was the game as a whole. It's like super impressive. No, but I do think it's a mental hurdle that he probably got over. I do feel like the Browns probably needed that too. It's probably the biggest win for you guys since what, the playoff win. It's a pretty big win.
Yeah, the crazy thing is he had an MRI on Monday. And he might not, it's up in the air whether he'll play against the Steelers.
For his ankle, right?
Yeah. Can't catch a break.
Yeah. All right. So I'll continue on. What I learned is that I'll put the fantasy slant on this. I don't think you can count on anyone in New York or East Rutherford, wherever you want to call it, the Jets, the Giants. I'll tease the Bills here, but I mean, obviously there's maybe a guy. I could maybe think of one guy, maybe 2 that you still play, but none of these guys I don't feel comfortable. I'll just say Saquon Barkley I don't feel comfortable having him as my RB2 right now. You know, he's at this point, and it's the same thing with Brees Hall. I think they're still good. They can be productive, but the offense is just not scoring. So you don't have the touchdown upside with these guys, and that for me drops them right to my OP or my flex position where I'm deciding whether or not I'm going to start them or a wide receiver I think is going to get 7 targets. Because at this point, I feel like the chances of that second or third wide receiver on the team grabbing a touchdown as it is for Barkley to score a touchdown or even Brees. They just can't. I mean, they're moving the ball between the 20s, but they're not punching it in. And it's bad. It's sad. It's sad to see.
Yeah, I think the Bills might be like the New York team that I'm okay with. Dalton Kincaid actually looks pretty good. Really good, honestly. And I think Diggs and Josh Allen are still your starts. I think they both probably still finish top 5 in their respective categories. New York Jets, though, I think Garrett Wilson actually might be somewhat of a buy low or just trade candidate for me. He's getting the targets. I mean, Zach Wilson's only thrown like 5 touchdowns this entire year, so you're right about the touchdown upside. But if there's any validity to Aaron Rodgers saying he wants to play in mid-December, that changes.
Yeah.
I just think the target share that Garrett Wilson still has is pretty substantial, but I do agree with you as far as every other Jet and Giant player.
Yeah. No, I think your take is really well said. I agree with you also on Garrett Wilson. 2 of my losses were because Garrett Wilson got the targets, but had no chance for a touchdown with Zach Wilson. If he had gotten 1 score, I win both games. And I don't, and the saddest one to me is the Giants. I had built Waller up so much, and him going on IR is a nightmare.
It's a sad thing.
Yeah. So
I think
it's good take.
An end of year or like a rest of lifetime, maybe. What did I learn is that I don't know why I tried to convince myself or at least like come to the reality, or at least what I thought was reality of like Daniel Jones being a top 8 fantasy quarterback and Darren Waller being like a absolute steal in drafts. Like I should have gone with my Philly gut and just casted them away, but I decided to invest in them in a little bit, and I shouldn't have done that.
What is that? What is that Philly gut full of? Seeds, hops, bong resin, what? It's just
bong resin. That's his favorite. Just to touch back on what you guys just said. I obviously with the Garrett Wilson and Diggs, and yes, but for me, I just like if I traded for Josh Allen, I drafted him high. I can't count on him to be who I thought he was right now. Garrett Wilson is no longer the guy that I thought could help win me a league. He's a guy that I'm hoping gets me solid flex numbers based on the way the offense is running. And that's what I'm saying. I can't, if I can still make a trade right now, I'm not looking at my roster saying, well, I got Saquon Barkley as my RB2 right now. I'm good. I'm not counting on him. That's what I'm saying. You might need to make a move if you invested heavily in those guys. And the time's probably now. If your league, most leagues are probably running up close to their trade deadline now.
Yeah, I drafted for Brees Hall, and I'm already accepting, trade request, because what I need is what you're saying. I need a back I can put in there and know he's my second back or my first back, and he's going to be good. And and I can't count on Brees right now in comparison to the other trade where I got AJ Brown. I know I'm plugging AJ every week.
Yeah, imagine if you had Rachaad White.
I wouldn't feel good about that. I'm just not gonna lie.
You would. All right, if you say so.
Just what he is. That's all I'm asking. You could say he's getting fantasy points.
He's a running back that's doing well in fantasy. That's what I would say.
A receiver that every once in a while runs a ball.
Well, I kind of alluded to being wrong about a few things, mainly Daniel Jones and Darren Waller. I've gotten a lot of things wrong. Miles Sanders, wrong. Calvin Ridley, wrong. But I think And I've jinxed some stuff as well. You know, Zay Flowers was on a good tear and now he's kind of looking mediocre. But I will say I was exactly right with trading for Cortland Sutton. I think Cortland Sutton is exactly what you want in fantasy, an extremely high floor. He's caught in at least one touchdown in every single one of his games, except for one of them. Russell Wilson, and I mean, Sutton's kind of made Russell Wilson relevant again. If you can try and trade for Cortland Sutton, you should do it. If you could hold Cortland Sutton, you should do it. Like, it's the perfect fantasy player because you can add him into a lot of trades for a bigger league winner type of player. Keep an eye on Cortland Sutton. If you can get your hands on Cortland Sutton, you should do so. It might be a little bit too late, but the golden boy for me in fantasy right now is Cortland Sutton.
Well, and you know, there's so much, even in a dynasty league, you might trade for him for next year because I think Jerry Judy's gone.
Yeah.
I just too much, there's too many rumors. I think he's burned some bridges. So I think Cortland could be, you know, top 15 back next year or receiver.
Do you have any other what did you learn, Rocky?
No, not, I mean, you know, I've learned a lot of things, but pertaining to fantasy football, not so much.
Phil?
I got a couple I could throw out there. I want to talk about Sam Howell. I think I could confidently say that he's a QB1 on your fantasy team. If you have him on your roster, chances are he's probably outperforming a guy with a name you like better. And the Texans wide receiver core is worth whatever you got to do to trade for one of those guys. They are legit. Ever since like maybe the second, third game of the season where they stopped running the ball like every first down with Dameon Pierce, and they let Stroud throw the ball, he's proved them right, and I think there's no turning back. I think they're going to be very aggressive in the pass game, and I mean, Noah Brown, who was a guy that they couldn't figure out how to use in Dallas, has put together 2 really good weeks. He's helped me a lot. I picked him up a couple of weeks ago, but I think we're almost at the point, like next week happens, and we're talking about an offense where like you're picking up a guy if he's seen significance now.
Yeah. The only thing I worry about Houston is they finish with a tough schedule. And you look at like even the AFC North, like Baltimore Ravens have the hardest schedule going.
I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah, you know, Browns are like 24th and
Cincinnati too.
Yeah, Cincinnati's like second hardest schedule. And you know, the Texans, they have a kind of a gauntlet too, because they're going up against them. The Browns still going against, I think, the Steelers. I know they beat Cincinnati, and I don't know if they've played the Ravens yet, but they might have to play all 3 of those AFC North teams. And you know, the thing about Zay Flowers that you talked about, he was having a breakout year. We had Rashad Bateman that wasn't playing though, and the other receiver who I know you're going to mention later who wasn't playing. And now that there's more receivers in the mix, it's just making it a little bit harder. But I think Zay Flowers is going to blossom into something next year.
Yeah. Hey, Sam Howell was my waiver wire candidate for week 2. If you want to go back and check out that episode. So we were
Guys break, man. He stands in a pocket, takes a hit. I like how he plays.
Well, he's stopped taking sacks, and I think that's been a big turning point for him. Yeah, I mean, he looks like a guy. I mean, I hate to say it, not so much because I don't hate the Commanders that much, but you know, maybe I will in a few years because he looks good.
Yeah. Okay. I have 2 kind of quick what did I learns. One, Kincaid is legit. We talked about it before. Dynasty, you got your tight end for the next foreseeable future. And then I didn't realize that James Cook is related to Alexander Mattinson. Shout out to somebody in my fantasy group chat that said that.
You didn't know that?
Both players that had very high promise, high ceiling in drafts. Mattinson getting the reins, has done it in the past as the backup. James Cook, is this finally the year where he's a top 15 consistent running back? And they're both just not either performing, they're not being utilized. There's other players in those backfields that look to be at least a little bit more relevant as Bagel gets screen time for the 89th time.
You couldn't tell by the hair?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well,
And,
isn't
and you're burying the lead here, right? Because then that means that he was in the same backfield with his cousin Dalvin Cook.
Yeah. There's a family tree problem going on. I don't know.
I
If you
actually
have
was
Cook,
down
I'm
to
sorry. If you have Alexander Mountain, I'm sorry. I've learned that I want nothing to do with him.
That's fair. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those are my three words.
Real quick, I'm starting to believe that I don't think Baker Mayfield will necessarily be with the Buccaneers next year, but I
He's
do
played
think
well.
he's played well enough to where somebody's picking that guy up and he's going into camp as a number one starter.
Yeah,
And
I
I
believe
think
so.
you compare him to even Danny Dimes. I
Yeah.
think you make the case you'd rather have Baker.
I think
Yeah.
you would right now too. Yeah.
Now, Baker is who Baker is. He's a game manager. He's got a talented cast around him. He's gutsy and he can do but he's probably not somebody who's going to take over a game and win it like Lamar Jackson. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think he's played his way onto a roster.
All right. Well, that's what we learned from
Yeah, we
NFL
learned.
Week 10. Before we get into our weekly waivers, a little plug from Chalkboard. Scan the QR code on screen, click the link in the bio. Chalkboard is an extremely useful tool if you're doing any type of fantasy football. There's a bunch of discords, there's a bunch of chats that we have, including Rocky's cheat sheets where he lists who's going to do well for the week coming forward. We have Phil's picks if you like to bet spreads, things like that. You got Mark start sits, and we have an entire group chat dedicated just to bad opinions around about who you should start, who you should trade for, things like that. Strength of schedules for your defenses if you're streaming something like that. It's a really useful tool. It's 100% free for you, and it helps us and supports the show. So please, if you want to win your league, scan the QR code, click the link in the bio, and join Chalkboard. All right, weekly waivers. Who wants to start?
I can go. All right, you go.
All right. So my first pick, and I spoke about Tony Pollard several weeks ago, and people, kind of called me out a little bit on it, but I think that my stats kind of bore fruit. They were correct. He's averaging about 12 to 14, 15 runs a game, and it's just not enough, especially not enough where you drafted him. And so I think it's time to talk about Rico Dowdy, I guess. He is getting absolutely a pretty good amount of snaps. He is definitely relieving Tony Pollard quite a bit. And he responded, I think, 79 rushing yards on 12 attempts last game. And if he continues to perform, they're going to continue to feed him the ball. That was how Pollard unseated Zeke the year before. And so I think maybe going into your stretch, he's not a bad guy to have on your roster.
Yeah, I just want to add to that real quick. One great take about trying to trade Pollard while he still could. And Pollard did so well last year, and the Cowboys rushing offense did so well last year because they had two people. I mean, Zeke had like 8 to 9 touchdowns last year, and they literally haven't replaced that production, and they expected Pollard to do everything. So I think Dowdle knows that they need a second back, and Dowdle is that guy that like gives relief to Pollard. And who knows, maybe that's their goal line score that they just haven't had yet.
Hey, we could go back before, I think in the preseason, when we were doing our rankings by position. My big concern with Pollard was, can he be the feature back?
Yep.
Can he hold up to the carries and stay healthy? And everybody was going nuts. And sure, do I hate the Cowboys? You fucking know it. So, did that play a part of it? Maybe. But I think there was truth to it. I think we looked at a guy. I mean, we've seen, if you're a football person, you're a football guy, you've seen this time and time again. Guy has pop off the bench, looks like a world beater, give him the full-time job, and he doesn't have the same spark. Some guys are not meant to carry that kind of load. Pause. So what I would say is that I think it bears fruit. And I think when we said in the preseason, you should invest in some of these other guys in the backfield, maybe you were smart enough to do so. I just hope that you weren't one of the guys that went and took Pollard number 1 or 2 overall in your fantasy draft after McCaffrey or traded for him. It's not going to work. And guess what? They want to throw the ball in Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think you look at like Jared Cook, and that's my issue with him too. Is I know he's got all the talent.
James Cook.
Yeah, from Buffalo. My
Are you talking
family
about the
name was
tight end from the used to
No,
play
you
for the
meant James Cook.
Reds?
James Cook.
James Cook. I'm sorry, no. James, he's another guy. I love his talent. He pops off the screen, looks amazing, but he's about the same size as Pollard. I just don't think he's built to be in every single down back. There's a reason why they had Murray. There's a reason why they signed Fat Lenny to their practice squad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing
Yeah,
against these guys. They're amazing.
everyone
You
but
know
Mark
who's
who had Pollard as
what?
their second. I said everyone but Mark who had Pollard as his second fantasy running back. And also, real quick, one of my favorite memes in our dynasty league is the fact that Sean spent $90 on Tony Pollard, and I like the second it happened, like was like, oh, $90 for the guy. But I'm waiting until week 18 to resurface it.
All right, so you
Sean's
know who's
a Cowboy fan.
who?
Yeah.
He is. Yeah, he's got it.
Still, you can't be
Just
raised that way and then turn. I don't care who you are.
you can't
I
wash it off.
Yeah, I wish I could quit the Browns. I can't.
All
All
right.
right,
Well,
so my turn. You messed up my segue site, so I'll just go into it. Um, I'm going with Ty Chandler. We just talked about Alexander Madison. He's in concussion protocol. Cam Akers is out for the year with a torn Achilles. What does Ty Chandler do? He takes 15 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown. It's not crazy, but I'll take it at this point in the season. If you go snatch him up, Dobbs looks like he's, can handle the job right now. And the Vikings are going to probably score points. I mean, they screwed up like 5 of my tickets this week, blowing the Saints out. I did not see that coming. And I think he's a decent enough runner. He's going to get value. So, Ty Chandler.
I like that, and I think that Vikings in general, they're probably getting JJ back soon. Like, I think you kind of have to start saying the Vikings, they beat, the 49ers, they beat New Orleans. They're playing well. Joshua Dobbs looks like the rocket scientist that he is. They look good.
yeah, they're calling him the Pastronaut, which is
Yeah,
kind
I
of
like that. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Not bad.
Tyler Chandler is disclosure to anybody watching. Tyler Chandler is the only person that I'm actually like picking up off waivers for like my team's needs and things like that. So yeah, I 100% agree with Chandler at this point in the season.
Or so you think you would.
At this point in the season, waiver wires are kind of thin, and you're looking for any production that you could potentially predict. Odo Beckham, who I stayed clear of in drafts, didn't want anything to do with the guy that has no ACL, but he has 2 touchdowns in 2 games back to back. Something to look at. If you're wide receiver needy, I would look Odo Beckham's way, and that's really all I got to say about him as a waiver wire candidate.
I think he's a good pickup for the flex. I think he is talented enough to where he can get one pass and it can go for a touchdown. And you saw that on Sunday. Most of the game, the Browns had him in containment, but he's still Odell. He knows how to run a route. He ran a route across the middle, had a step, and then beat everybody to the end zone. So, yeah, I think it's a good pickup.
That's all I got for waivers.
I got a couple more real quick, all right? So
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you guys a guy that I drafted or actually signed early in the year. I think in draft I got him. But Luke Musgrave, if you're looking for a tight end, he's been a little up and down all year. But the last 3 weeks he's been pretty consistent. 4 to 5 targets. He's catching like 3 or 4 of those. 7, 14, 8 point totals. Nothing crazy, but they do target him in the red zone. So he's pretty viable. I mean, there's just not a lot at tight end. And earlier, a couple weeks ago, I did also recommend picking up the Falcons defense. I'm gonna go ahead now. I was one of the few people in my league that was carrying 2 defenses a couple weeks ago because I had the Browns and the Saints respectively. And I was having to drop one for a roster spot. And I kind of looked at their schedule going ahead to decide who I was going to keep. And I really like the Browns. I'm going to say in the last 5 weeks, point totals of 8, 12, 23, and 15. I mean, we're talking about flex position numbers there. And the 1 week that they didn't really perform was for some reason they didn't really hit their sack numbers against Seattle in week 8. But besides that, I mean, they've gone up against some pretty good offenses and put up numbers, and they got a pretty soft schedule coming up as far as going up against offenses. I mean, they got Pittsburgh, Denver, who looks like they're maybe turning a corner, but I still trust the Browns to be able to turn the ball over there. The Rams, Jacksonville, Chicago, Houston, who's looking like not a walkover now, and the Jets. Like Zach said, if you're trying to add points to strengthen up your team, I mean, I don't know how many weeks I've looked and my defense is pitching in 18, 20 points when I have a guy not showing up and I win that week. So don't overlook your defenses. And if you get the Browns or even the Saints are pretty good too. But specifically defenses that don't have buys left, go out and grab them.
I got
ridiculous.
Yeah, this is like, control it.
Want screen time?
I got a couple more. I got, one, and I know that he's not rostered in even 20% of the leagues. People kind of forgot about him. But Kenneth Gainwell, he scored two touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. I think he's a guy that he's an injury away from being a really competent starter. I think he's a pretty good receiver and a runner. And then I got two deep wide receivers. One is A.T. Perry. In my 2 40-man leagues, I stashed this guy because I like the metrics. I like how he looked. Michael Thomas is hurt. We're not sure how much he's hurt, but if he is hurt, A.T. Perry will be the number 2. And then in Arizona with Kyle Murray coming back, looking like he's up and up, like he looks like he did before he got hurt. I like Michael Wilson. He had a 20% target share Sunday. I think he's going to work into being their wide receiver too. Rondell Moore has not worked. And so I think Michael Wilson could be the benefactor.
Fair.
All right. Well, waivers are out of the way. And now it is time to get bold.
That's how you get bold.
We had one do well last week. But we were on the right track, though, in general. Like, because Rocky, you were right about Deshaun Watson just being good. Phil was right about Mike Evans doing excellent. And Mark said that Justin Fields is going to do great. Didn't play. So we can kind of count that as a wash. But I can go first if we want, as far as the predictions go, unless you guys are ready to go.
No,
you can go.
All right. Well, Devon Achane, he is back. If he plays, he has the opportunity to play, and it's probable that he's going to play. If Achane hits the field this week, expect 20+ points from him. It's like he never left. So I get bold.
So 20+?
20+.
Okay.
Bold.
You want to go next, Phil? You want me to go next?
25.
There you go.
35 points.
No. I'll go next. All right, so I'm gonna go with Mr. Andy Reid and the Chiefs here. Super Bowl rematch. I think Andy always gets fired up to go against his old team. Give me Rashee Rice, who we were talking about a few weeks ago, had a down week against Miami. I'm going 140 yards, 2 touchdowns for Rashee Rice. Breakout game. Who's on him?
It doesn't
covering
matter.
him?
It doesn't matter who's covering him because we like to just give big name wide receivers big plays. CeeDee Lamb, who always just burns the Eagles secondary, you can count on that. But I mean, it's a Bradbury, hold, or it's a Bradbury slip.
Yeah.
Or it's Darius Slay in zone when it should have been man. Not his fault, defensive calling, I mean. But yeah, I can unfortunately see this happening, but I really hope you're wrong.
Fireworks going off in Arrowhead this week.
All right. I'm going to take you guys to the shore of the beautiful Lake Erie, and I'm going big time. The Browns have not been in first place in the AFC North for almost 20 years, and this is the Sunday they do it. Joe Burrows beats the Ravens on Thursday night, and the Browns take over first by throttling, yes, you heard me, throttling the Steelers. They'll beat them by at least 17 points, and they're taking over first AFC North.
Okay. First IRL.
I can see that. I can see that.
Just for shits and giggles, you have a fantasy one?
I like. I think David Njoku has been running incredibly hard after the catch. He's using the most of his targets, and I do think he's going to be a breakout player this Sunday. So I'm going to give him 90 to 100 yards and a score against the Steelers.
That's extremely bold. That's super bold.
I'm a super guy.
Okay.
Well, I think that's the show. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you win your week.
Yes.
Please click the link in the bio for Chalkboard, Thrive Fantasy, make some money to Thrive, win your matchup with Chalkboard. Follow us on all of our social medias, including Instagram, including YouTube here, including TikTok, where we are most predominant. Almost 10,000 followers on TikTok. Help us get there. I don't think, unless you guys have anything to say, we'll see you next week.
Subscribe. Peace.